Hi everybody, it's me again, and today's the day. Today's the day we learn Judy's magic cast on the magic loop. So, where to begin? First, I will say if this is your first time doing it, I would go with a little bit bigger of a yarn. I wouldn't start out with sock weight yarn because it's very fine, and the magic loop and Judy's magic cast on, it takes some practice to get right, to get perfect. I'm not gonna lie. It takes practice. So don't get discouraged. Just use a little bit thicker of a yarn. Like I said, this is baby weight yarn. It's a 3. So yeah. The first thing you want to do is if your sock pattern calls for like 64 stitches, what I do is I divide that in half. So 32 stitches. That means I want 32 stitches on each needle. And to begin Judy's magic cast on, I want to divide the 32 because I have to do my increases. So I want to take 32 and divide that by 2 as well. So that's 16. So when you first start out and you cast on Judy's magic cast on, you want 16 stitches on each needle because then you're going to increase up to the 32 on each needle, which will give you a total all around of 64. So, with that being said, how to begin Judy's magic cast on. How I do it is, and I will put a link to her blog where she goes over everything on how she does it, and I don't even know if I do it correctly, but the way I do it, it works. So I'm just gonna stick with it. What you wanna do, you have your yarn coming from the ball and you have your tail. What I do is I set up my needles like this. So I have one in back and one up front. And I wanna take my tail part of the yarn and I wanna slide it right in between the needles. So the yarn is draping over the back needle. And you want to pull some, a nice tail out because you have to cast on, in this case, I'm going to do 12. And because I'm going to do a circumference all the way around of 48 stitches, so I'm going to put on 12. I'm going to increase to 24 on each needle, and that will give me 48 all around. So I need to leave enough tail for 12 stitches. Okay. So you have it like this. Your working yarn from the ball is draped over the back needle. Your tail yarn comes right in between the two and is draped down. You then want to pick up your yarn as if you're doing a long tail cast on. And this is where you can get confused and you're going to rip it out several times and you're going to start over. But don't get discouraged because the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So you already have yarn coming over your needle that's attached to your thumb. That's how you have to think of it. This is the thumb yarn. The thumb yarn goes in the back. Your finger yarn goes in the front needle. So to do that, you want to take your yarn and you want to wrap the finger yarn around the front needle. So now you have 2 stitches total, 1 on each needle. And you want to do it again, but now it's the thumb's turn to wrap around the back needle. So what you want to do is you want to take your thumb yarn, you want to bring it up in between the 2 needles and wrap it around the back needle. Then you want to take your finger yarn, come in front of the front needle and down in between the 2 needles. So now you have 2 and 2, 4 total, 2 on the front, 2 on the back. Now it's the thumb's turn again. The thumb's yarn, remember goes in the back needle. So you go up in between the needles and over. And now it's the finger's turn. You're going to bring the finger forward and up in between the needles. You're always going to end with the finger yarn. That's how you know you're going to start the whole process over to add more stitches. So now it's the thumb's turn again. Take our thumb yarn, bring it up through the needles, over the back needle. Our finger yarn is going to come out in front and down in between the needles. sometimes. Like I said, it gets finicky. Be patient. Okay, so now we have 4 stitches on each needle for a total of 8, and I said I wanted to do 12. So now it's the thumb's turn again. Thumb goes first, thumb comes up in between and wraps around the back needle. The finger yarn comes down in front, up and in between the needles. Okay, so now we have 2, 4, we have 5 on each, 10 total. It's my thumb's turn again, so I'm going to take my thumb yarn, bring it up in between the needles, wrap it around the back needle, take my finger yarn, bring it in front, go down in between the needles to wrap the bottom needle. Okay, thumb's turn again, same thing, up, in between the needles, wrap it around the back, fingers yarn, we're going to bring it in front, wrap it around the back or the front needle and down in between the needles. Okay, do it again, thumb's turn, bring the thumb yarn up, in between the needles, wrap it around the back, finger, bring it in front, wrap it around the front needle and in between and down. So now we have 2, 4, 6, 8 on each. A few more stitches and then we can start, I can show you how we do the increases. Okay, thumb's turn again. So we're gonna bring our yarn up in between the needles and wrap it around the back needle. Take our finger yarn, bring it in front, wrap it around the front needle and down in between the needles. Do it again. Thumb's turn. Thumb yarn comes up in between and around the back needle. Finger yarn comes down, up and around the front needle and down in between. Okay, and that's all you do. You just do that as many times as you need to cast on an even number amount. Remember, you're finished with a round of cast on and you end with the finger. The finger yarn is when you're finished with that round. You have even stitches on your needle. To begin a new round, you start with the thumb yarn. You bring it up, in between, wrap it around the back. Take your finger yarn, bring it down, in front, wrap it around the front needle and down. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. I have 1 more stitch to put on each needle. Start with our thumb yarn. Bring it up, in between the needles, wrap it around the back needle, take our finger yarn, bring it down in front, and wrap it around that front needle and put it down in between the needles. Now we're finished with our cast on. I have 12 stitches on each needle. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 stitches on each needle. So now what I do, this is where it gets a little finicky. You want to take your tail yarn. If you can see here, you have your working yarn coming out. Let me try to find you, sorry. You have your working yarn coming out right here, and you have your tail yarn right here. What you want to do is you want to take your tail yarn, and you just want to wrap it around the working yarn, and bring it to the back. You want to take your needles, the whole thing, and turn it this way. Okay? So now your tail yarn's right here, and it's kind of wrapped around your working yarn. And I like to take my tail yarn and just put it down like this with my needles and grab a hold of it like that. So it's kind of back here. I have my working yarn coming right here. Now, when you increase, I don't personally increase on my first round. I find that makes it a little more challenging than it already is. So this is how I do it. I'm gonna pull my bottom needle. So I have my back needle, my front needle, or you can say top and bottom, and I pull that bottom one. Pull it out. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna insert it into that first stitch, like to knit, take my yarn, and just knit. Okay, and I'm gonna knit that whole, all 12 stitches. Oops. And you want to knit all 12 stitches, and you don't want to do it too tight at first because the cord is on your bottom stitches, and if it wraps too tight around there, it could be hard to pull it back around to get your needle through. I'll show you what I mean. So we've knitted all 12 stitches. Now I'm going to take it and I'm going to turn it like this. So the stitches I just made are on the bottom needle. I'm going to take my cord, push it through, twist it on, and I have it like that. Okay, so now the stitches I just made are on the bottom. The stitches I have yet to work, I haven't knitted into this top needle yet. So what I'm going to do that, your working yarn is coming off the bottom needle. What you want to do is pull that bottom needle, put it in that first stitch on the top needle, insert it like to knit. Try not to pull too tight because as you can see right here, that stitch, that yarn is connected to that stitch and it pulls around the cord. And if you pull too tight, you're going to have a hard time pulling your needle back through. Okay, so you take your working yarn and you just knit off this needle as normal. All 12 stitches. Okay, now you can see where this is kind of like loose. If you pull on your tail yarn, a little tug, not too tight, it gets tightened back up. It like tightens back up and it looks neat again. Okay, so you just finished that. You're going to turn your yarn and your needles. You're going to take the top one and you're going to push it through. And sometimes you have to twist it in there. You've knitted too tight, and this is going to take practice because the first couple times you do it, your tension's probably going to be too tight, or maybe your stitches will be too loose, or you just won't like the result of what it looks like. So you might have to practice a little bit, and like I've always said, the more practice, the better you do. So, okay, I have it like this. Now, I've made one full time around. I've knitted both the top and the bottom. My tail yarn is now back at the starting point. That's how I personally keep track of when I've gone all the way around, is my tail yarn will be right here on the right. That's how I know. My working yarn is coming from the bottom needle. Now this is the round where you increase, and you only increase every other round until you have the desired amount of stitches on each needle. How I increase. Some people increase on the first stitch. I personally increase on the second stitch. I do a KFB, which is a knit through the front and through the back. I will show you when I get there what that looks like. But some people, like I said, knit through, or increase with their first stitch, and that'll give you more of a seam right on the edge of the toe. I don't know, I don't really like that look for myself personally. I kind of like it more. I can show you what that looks like maybe in a later video, or I can just show you in this one what it looks like. But yeah, anyways, you want to either increase in your first stitch or your second stitch, and then either the second to the last stitch or the last stitch, depending on where you increased up here. So for instance, if you increased on your first stitch, you're going to increase on your last stitch. If you increased on the second stitch, you're going to increase on the second to last stitch. And this is how I do it. My working yarn's coming from the bottom needle. So I'm going to pull my bottom needle. I'm going to insert my needle into the first stitch as to knit. Make sure you grab your working yarn and not your tail yarn. I've done that several times and it's frustrating. Take your working yarn. Make your first stitch. And like I said, I increase on my second stitch. So this is how I increase. It's a KFB, and a KFB is where you go into knit as normal, bring that stitch up, but you don't take it off the hook or off the needle. I always say that, I'm sorry. You don't take it off the needle, instead you wrap it around, and you want to go through the back loop of that same stitch, where you'll then wrap it, pick up that stitch, and then you slide it off. And then you want to knit the rest of your stitches. Now, because I increased on my second stitch, I'm going to increase on my second to last stitch right here. So I'm going to take it, same thing, do a KFB, make your knit stitch, don't take it off the needle, wrap it around, go back in through that back loop of that same stitch, wrap it, make another stitch, and then slip it off, and then knit your last. Okay, that was the first part, the first round of increases, or the first half of increases. Now I'm going to take it, I'm going to turn my work, make sure all the stitches I just made are on the bottom, put my needle back through, straighten up my stitches a little bit. Now I have to increase on this side. My tail yarn's over here, so I know I'm on my second half of the round. My working yard's coming from the bottom. I'm going to take the needle out of the bottom, pull it through, insert it in to the first stitch, and like I said, because I increased on my second stitch, I'm going to increase on this side too, on the second one. Do a KFB, which is knit through the front and through the back, wrap it around, go through the back loop, wrap it, make a stitch. Then continue knitting all the way down until you get to your second to last stitch. And that's only if you increased on the second stitch. If you increased on the first stitch, you're going to increase on the last stitch. Okay. Oops. All right, here's my second to last stitch. I'm going to do my increase, a KFB. Okay, then knit my last stitch. Okay, the stitches I just made are now on the top, but I'm going to turn it so the stitches I just made are now on the bottom. I'm going to slide my needle through, my top needle through, and then I'm going to knit just a plain round. Now eventually your work is going to start doing this, okay? And you're not going to have a bottom and top needle anymore. You're going to have a front and a back needle. You always want to pull the needle out that has your working yarn coming through it, or coming from it. That's when you pull, that's the needle you pull. Your working yarn will be coming from the needle you pull out. Another thing I want to mention is when you begin a new round, like I said, I notice from my tail yarn, it's always on the right. That's how I know I'm starting a new round. You can feel free to put a stitch marker on this side so you know this is your front and you're starting a new round. Also, this front here, the very first section of your new round will be the heel part. So you'll work your heel here on this section, on this side, on the very front side when you're starting a new round. Another thing I want to mention is what you do is after you do an increase round, you want to do a regular round. And then you'll do an increase round, and then you'll do a regular round, like just a normal knit round, and then another increase round until you have the desired amount of stitches on your needles. I wanted to do, my whole circumference was 48 stitches, so I cast it on 12 with Judy's Magic Cast On, and I'm going to increase to 24 stitches on each needle. And that's pretty much it. I hope I went over it enough with you. You have to practice. Please practice, practice, practice. So yeah, that's Judy's Magic Cast On the Magic Loop, and I will put a link to her blog in the description below. Also, if you want to follow me on Facebook, I will put that link in the description below as well. Please subscribe and like my channel, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And I enjoy making videos for you, and I can't wait to see you again next time. Until next time, I don't know what my next video will be, but I'll think of something. Have a great day, guys. Bye.